Moin Moin und hallo, ich bin's mal wieder, euer Gregor, und ihr seht, ausnahmsweise bin ich nicht in der Weltgeschichte unterwegs, sondern in unserem heimischen Gewinnspiel, und ich habe einen ganz besonderen Gast bei mir, Cody Rhodes, WWE Superstar. Hi Cody.
Hello.
So I would like to start talking a little bit about your wrestling career. Of course, you are the son of Dusty Rhodes, one of the most famous wrestlers of the 70s and 80s.
He's just a common man, working hard with his hands.
How was it to grow up as the son of such a common man?
Honestly, for me, you know, I was born in '85, and at the time, my father was like retired, you know, in and out of the wrestling business, sports entertainment. So for me, he was just dad. Never missed a wrestling match. He never missed a football game. He was our this is American football. He was our coach from the time I was in grade 6 to grade 10. Everybody where I grew up just calls him Coach. It wasn't until I broke into sports entertainment, moved to Louisville, Kentucky, that I really got like a firm grasp on how large of an impact that he had in the business, and that was very, very overwhelming for me.
So when did the wrestling bug bite you? Did you, because your father and your brother later had so much success, want to break into the business, or was it something that occurred to you later on in your life?
Honestly, I tell people this all the time, and it sounds like I'm making it up, but from the very first time I ever went to a wrestling show, I want to say 6 years old, and it was a show, WCW shows in the South, and my dad brought me, and I was still backstage. I hadn't even made it to my seat yet, and I heard somebody who I don't know hit the mat. And then I heard the reaction that came after they hit the mat, and I so just desperately wanted to get out and see what was happening and what was taking place, and that from then on I was hooked. The very first time I heard it.
So you probably would have been going into this kind of career regardless of your heritage. So.
Well, it's funny because if you ask my dad, he'll tell you, "Oh, I didn't want Cody to get into sports entertainment. I didn't want him to be part of the WWE necessarily. It's a difficult road ahead." But the truth is, he exposed me to it at 4 years old. The youngest memory I have is of WWE, so it's his fault, if anybody's, very much.
So tell us a little bit about your brother Goldust, Dustin Rhodes, who had one of the most memorable characters ever created in wrestling. So is it something you strive for? Do you want to have your personal own Goldust moment, or do you think you already had it maybe?
I might have already had it. In terms of one of the things I'm most proud of is if you take Dusty Rhodes and you take Goldust and myself and you put us all on paper, the three of us are distinctly different, and I don't do a service to anybody by trying to be Dusty Rhodes Jr. or trying to, be Goldust. I'm maybe breaking out and having the mask on for that entire year might have been my Goldust moment, but in terms of just sheer ridiculousness and bizarre, very few people can top Goldust. That's a whole nother level of just ridiculous.
So you said when you broke into the business, Louisville, Kentucky, that's where OVW was,
yeah.
Ohio Valley Wrestling. Mm-hmm. So you went through there and then moved on to the WWE. Do you think it would have been more beneficial for you if you went through the old territory system, so to travel around more, or do you think this was the best way you could get into the business?
That's a really good question. I didn't start necessarily in Louisville. I started when I was 15 as a referee for my dad and his independent promotion in Georgia, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. But if I look at the path I took once I got into the WWE, where I was in a tag team with Hardcore Holly, and then I was part of the legacy with Randy Orton and Ted DiBiase, and then I ended up on my own, and now I have a mask on, and then I'm smiling and telling people I'm so dashing and all these things. In that case, I would have benefited from the territory system because I could have taken these different elements and done them in different parts of the country. But I actually get a kind of kick out of the fact that the viewer has been watching me since I was 21 years old. So I genuinely have been able to grow up on WWE TV, and that's very cool.
If I remember back, the first time I saw something of you was at the Hall of Fame induction of Dusty.
Yeah.
I think that's been probably the moment where most people outside of the business took notice of you, when you had a very good and confident speech in front. Do you think this was your breakthrough moment there, or?
I don't know. I had just a sensation, a feeling that inducting, my father was about him, and that was his night. But this is also, at the time, I was under contract, and this is the first time anybody is going to see me, and I'm in such great company. I'm in, my brother Goldust, and then my dad's about to come out here, and how do I, add up? It's weird. I guess maybe it was a breakthrough moment, but every time I see that footage, the only thing I can say is my teeth were really yellow. I had like really yellow teeth, and now I don't have the yellow teeth anymore. But I was like really distinctly upset with how yellow my teeth were, and I don't even think they were that yellow. It was just I'm quite vain, but that was the one thing I remember most about that moment.
The gentleman to my right, he deserves more credit than he will ever know. The Attitude Era, the Austin era that was professional wrestling, I do not believe it would have been ushered in so heavily had it not been for the envelope-pushing style of one Goldust.
As a performer, a lot of people tend to be overly critical of themselves. Do you think this is a trait you have, or can you handle this?
I think at first I was extremely critical, but I've gotten to a point now where once I give myself enough time to do everything. I put on 2 pairs of socks, and I lace my boots up, and I lace them tight, and once I'm ready to go, I genuinely remind myself to have fun. Because for a while I wasn't having fun. I had a chip on my shoulder. I was worried about stepping outside of somebody's shadow that really doesn't have to be there in the first place. Now I make great pains to just go out there and have a good time.
As a second-generation wrestler, do they look a bit different from you? Everybody's expecting a little bit more of you, I have the impression, because you have to prove that you're not just there because of your name.
Well, don't believe anyone who tells you, like, oh, it's so difficult, because it's clearly not when you have a foot in the door already, and you can make one phone call and, hey, my son wants a job, and you get a job. That's really easy. But it's both. It's bittersweet in terms of, okay, hey, my name is Cody Rhodes. Rhodes, huh? Well, you better go out there and dance and rap and
the polka dots,
and have polka dots and be hitting people with elbows and have bleach blonde hair. And it's just, there's an expectation set, so it's definitely both. There's a really streamlined part of being a second generation and being able to break right in, and then there's the really difficult part where you can either wallow around and try to put, in my case, Paul Heyman actually told me this once, and I thought it was like really, really great. I did an interview for him, and he asked me, he said, those are cool boots. Whose boots are those? I said, they're my dad's boots. He said, well, I didn't know, I didn't need to know by looking at those boots that you could definitely fill his shoes. And that was a really just insane compliment to me because, like I said, big shoes to fill.
Very big shoes to fill.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. To get to one question a little bit earlier, said when you were 6, for the first time you heard that you became a wrestling fan. Who was your favorite wrestler when you grew up?
I had so many different favorite wrestlers, and I have to be careful with who I say is my favorite wrestler.
Oh, it's still one who could beat you up.
People get offended, but for me, at the age I was when WrestleMania 12 and the Iron Man match.
It's one of my favorite matches of all time, I have to say.
It's phenomenal, and it's not even an hour, it's an hour plus. And at my age, with my attention span being, nothing, I sat Indian style and waited for Shawn Michaels to win the WWE title, waited for it. And when I didn't get it, I almost threw the remote through the TV, but then, okay, Gorilla Monsoon, and oh yeah, all of a sudden, and then Shawn Michaels became WWE champion, and I had followed his entire run. That was my favorite, and it's almost boring to say Shawn Michaels because like that's what everybody says, but he's the best.
Shawn Michaels, of course, was also one of the all-time greats as an Intercontinental Champion. You had one of the longest runs recently as an IC champ.
I wanted it to be longer.
Yeah. Do you think you could have beaten out Honky?
That was the question. Could I surpass Honky Tonk Man? And I felt like we were on the proper road to doing it, and then I stepped in something I should have never stepped into.
So
and,
Big Show's fist there.
Yes, exactly. And that was the end. I think had I not gotten a little overzealous and tried to put so much into Big Show's WrestleMania moment, I certainly could have caught up to the Honky Tonk Man. Yeah.
It was a bit of a mark-out moment for me when you stepped out with the original IC title, the older design with the white straps and everything. So I'm always glad to see old classic design belts.
That's the best one.
I had the feeling there you've been onto something very special there.
Thank you. That was New Orleans, Louisiana, and I had an entire list of things that I wanted to say about that title, and I forgot all of them because as soon as I pulled it out of the bag, this very vocal minority that was in the crowd, but extremely vocal to the point where you don't know they're the minority, was so excited about it that it got me excited, and I forgot a great deal of what else I was going to say. And then I ended up wrestling a match in a suit. But what a good night overall. It took a lot to get that title back, and now it's WWE's.
Talk a little bit about your evolution in WWE from Legacy. Then came, I think, Dashing Cody Rhodes. Whose idea was that? How much of Cody Rhodes is into Dashing Cody Rhodes?
It was mine, but there are people, you'll ask them, like certain individuals in the locker room who would say, well, who's always in front of the mirror, or who's extremely vain, and I was pretty guilty of a lot of the grooming tips.
A lot of manscaping.
A lot of the manscaping. Very, very guilty of it, but it kind of just built off of that. I loved characters like Ravishing Rick Rude, like we said, Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. The model. Just I was always fond of that level of vanity, and when I heard, okay, well, Dashing Cody Rhodes is going to have a digital mirror on stage, and he's going to look into it, and it's going to reflect out onto the audience, I was sold.
It's a digital mirror. You can't see anything there, but you turned anyway to looking at it.
Oh, my favorite part of the whole thing was a poor stagehand to sit there for like, I want to say 45 minutes at least every SmackDown and just stand in front of it so that they got it in the right frame and I watched him, and I don't think he even knew he had to do it for me, but every week I enjoyed that.
Sometimes a curse can be a blessing. How times have changed. I am resurrecting the status of the Intercontinental Championship because I'm not the freak here.
That was Dashing Cody Rhodes, but then you took a turn for the dark with Rey Mysterio, who kicked you with his knee brace in the head. And then I think I didn't expect that you have so much, let's say, villainous in you. Did you surprise yourself being such a bad guy?
No. WWE is sports entertainment, show business, and nice guys finish last. And I had, like I was saying earlier, there was a time where I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder and was performing and competing so that I could prove something. In this case, that's just a 25, 26-year-old angry kid. And I was very glad that I had that as an outlet. Very glad.
World Champion Cody Rhodes, when?
Don't ask Jim Ross, because he keeps saying like 5 months from now, and then 5 months go by, and I almost feel like calling him and telling him to stop, because he's jinxing
he's
things.
Jinxing it,
yeah, very much.
Barbecue sauce.
Here's the thing. I'm one of those who wants it now, and that seems to be the case with everything in the WWE. But the benefit of having grown up on WWE TV is, if you ask me honestly, are you ready to be World Heavyweight Champion? I don't know yet. I really don't know. But I'd say sooner than later. Sooner than later.
Oh, okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
So let's.
I think you get paid more. I think
you get an extra cup of coffee.
Yeah, something.
Something like this. Yeah.